VNP.
And voter suppression is at an all-time high. Another state, Michigan, is ramping up to become the next state to continue that kind of oppression. Joining me now is Executive Director of Voters Not Politicians, Nancy Wang. Glad you could join us tonight, Nancy. Nancy, we've seen this now in multiple states around the country. What's happening specifically in Michigan? And this is, of course, in the context of the new census data that's come out.
Right. So you just did a story about redistricting that's happening in Michigan as well. We have a history of Republicans gerrymandering our maps, so they seized power in that way. And now we have an independent commission that's going to be drawing fair and impartial maps. So what's happening now on the voter suppression side is the Republican-led legislature is partnering with a group that is going to be using our citizen initiative process to cram through voter suppression laws that are not supported by the majority of Michigan voters in order for those legislators to keep on to power.
And how much of this is based on race?
Well, you know, on the face of it, these measures that will be going on a petition, just the process of it is they're going to be collecting petition signatures out in the field, asking people to sign on. And if 340,000 people sign on, then the legislature will take these and pass them into law. And on their face, you know, they seem to be saying, well, you know, you just need to show this kind of ID or provide this information in order to vote absentee. But when you drill down to it, you know that these burdens will fall disproportionately on our communities of color and disadvantaged communities. One example is that it would ban any kind of outside money, so any funds from the League of Women Voters or other charities that have historically funded or helped to fund some of the very basic kind of administrative functions, because our clerks are severely underfunded year after year by the legislature. So they rely on these funds for things like, personal protective devices last year, or even water for election staff, these kinds of things. Mm-hmm. And it's the clerks in our inner cities that are the most severely underfunded year after year.
One could think that each of these states was operating in this way independently, or that this is something that Republicans, just locally gathered to do. But there's actually a national effort on redistricting and to maintain power. Talk a bit about how that works and why this census is so critical to that redistricting effort.
Right. So, it's no coincidence that these voter suppression efforts we've seen kind of rolling through Georgia, Arizona, Texas, these are all kind of, swing states. They're becoming more and more kind of diverse, power is shifting. And so this is where, we're seeing politicians in these still Republicans control the legislatures in these states, and you're seeing these kind of voter suppression measures kind of roll through these legislatures, trying to hold on to power when they know that if all voters were allowed to vote, if everybody had the choice to vote absentee or however was most convenient for them, then they likely would be voted out of power. So the census is telling us that, our communities are getting more diverse, our states are getting more diverse in these swing states, and those are exactly the states where, these kinds of big lie proponents are trying to cling on to power in really undemocratic ways.
So what is the resolution here then? Is this because now it comes down to these state legislatures and they get to draw up their own maps?
Well, no. So there are things that citizens can do, and Michigan really shows the way in some respects. So, this is kind of all coming into a head. The Republican legislature is really kind of trying everything it can to hold on to power, because citizens passed a constitutional amendment here in 2018 to put an independent citizens commission in charge of redistricting. So because we foreclosed, we closed one door, now they're trying to, keep their power by going through another. So, I would just say, we are assigned, we show that there is hope when voters of, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, all across the political spectrum get together. And we know that this is about voters, not politicians. So I think once we unite together, rights, we can take back our power and, and elect people who actually, will look out for our interests.
Nancy, really appreciate you joining us and giving us an insight into what we can expect next in this battle for voting rights and in this battle to maintain some sense of power for people of color. Nancy is the Executive Director of Voters Not Politicians. Thanks again for joining us. We'll be back with more World Tonight.